Level 3. The Mystery of JonBenét Ramsey. Chapter 1. The Facade of the Perfect House. This chilling narrative centers on the remarkably affluent Ramsey family. They resided in an opulent, 4-story Tudor-style mansion in Boulder, Colorado. Nestled against the breathtaking backdrop of the Rocky Mountains, Boulder is an idyllic, picturesque enclave. However, during the unforgiving winter months, the city is perpetually shrouded in a heavy, isolating blanket of snow. The Ramsey estate wasn't merely a home. It was a sprawling 15-room fortress of wealth and social prominence. The patriarch, 53-year-old John Ramsey, was a shrewd and highly successful software executive. His relentless ambition and lucrative business ventures had secured an exceptionally lavish lifestyle for his family. His wife, 39-year-old Patsy Ramsey, was a woman characterized by her glamorous elegance. A former pageant winner who once held the prestigious title of Miss West Virginia, Patsy thrived in the social spotlight. She had a distinct penchant for designer couture, extravagant jewelry, and hosting elaborate social gatherings in their magnificent residence. The couple had 2 children, each exhibiting starkly contrasting personalities. Their 9-year-old son, Burke, was a noticeably introverted and unassuming child. He generally preferred the quiet solitude of his bedroom, immersing himself in the solitary world of computers and video games. Conversely, their 6-year-old daughter, JonBenét, was a captivating, radiant presence. With her striking blonde hair and charismatic smile, she was frequently likened to a living, breathing porcelain doll. Heavily influenced by her mother's past, JonBenét was deeply entrenched in the fiercely competitive child pageant circuit. Patsy would meticulously groom her daughter, applying professional-grade makeup and bleaching her hair to a vibrant blonde. Draped in custom-designed, sequined gowns, the 6-year-old would confidently perform on massive stages, securing numerous prestigious titles. To the outside observer, the Ramseys epitomized the quintessential, flawless American dream. They possessed unimaginable wealth, resided in a winter wonderland, and raised 2 seemingly perfect children. Yet this projection of absolute perfection was nothing more than a meticulously crafted facade. As is often the case, the most magnificent mansions can conceal the most profound and devastating secrets behind their locked doors. Chapter 2. The Last Idyllic Day. It was late December, specifically the 25th of December, 1996. Across the United States, Christmas Day is universally celebrated as a time of profound joy and familial bonding. The Ramsey household commenced their holiday morning with infectious enthusiasm. While a brutal winter storm raged outside, the interior of their opulent mansion was bustling with warmth and festivity. The children, Burke and JonBenét, eagerly descended the stairs to discover a towering, meticulously decorated Christmas tree. Beneath its glowing branches lay an abundance of lavishly wrapped presents. The morning was spent enthusiastically tearing into exorbitant gifts, with JonBenét receiving a pristine new doll. John and Patsy observed their children with immense satisfaction, relishing the idyllic holiday atmosphere. Later that evening, the family donned their heavy winter attire to attend an elegant Christmas soiree hosted by close friends. The gathering was characterized by extravagant food, sophisticated conversation, and a palpable sense of holiday cheer. JonBenét spent the evening animatedly playing with the other children, thoroughly exhausting herself in the process. To any outside observer, the Ramseys' Christmas night appeared utterly quintessential and devoid of any underlying tension. As the clock approached 9:30 p.m., the festivities concluded, and it was time to retreat to their imposing residence. The drive home was eerily quiet, navigating through the desolate, snow-covered streets of Boulder. Completely drained of energy from the evening's excitement, JonBenét succumbed to a deep slumber in the back seat of the warm vehicle. Upon arriving at their sprawling estate, the 6-year-old remained entirely unresponsive to the outside world. Her father, John, tenderly extracted her from the car, cradling her in his arms as he navigated the icy walkway. He carried her up the sweeping staircase to her second-floor bedroom, laying her gently upon the mattress. Without waking her to change her garments, he simply draped a heavy white blanket over her small frame. Simultaneously, Patsy conducted a routine perimeter check of the sprawling mansion, ensuring the exterior doors were purportedly secure. After confirming that Burke was sound asleep in his respective quarters, the parents finally retired to their master suite.
Gradually, the cavernous house was consumed by an unsettling, pitch-black silence. The family was completely oblivious to the catastrophic nightmare that was about to unfold. Outside, the relentless snow continued to fall, while inside the chilling shadows, an unfathomable evil was already lurking. Chapter 3. The Bizarre Ransom Note. The seemingly endless, suffocating night finally yielded to a bleak and freezing dawn. In the early hours of December 26th, a pale winter sun cast long shadows over the frozen city. At precisely 5:30 a.m., Patsy Ramsey awoke and began her daily routine in the eerie quiet of the house. The sprawling mansion was enveloped in a profound, unsettling stillness, with the rest of the family still heavily asleep. Patsy exited the opulent master suite and made her way toward the spiral wooden staircase at the rear of the home. Her sole intention was to descend to the kitchen and prepare a morning pot of coffee. However, as she traversed the wooden steps, she was abruptly brought to a halt. There, resting ominously on the lower steps, was an incredibly bizarre and uncharacteristically long document. It was not a mere scrap of paper, but a meticulously handwritten letter spanning 2.5 pages. Patsy tentatively retrieved the pages and began to process the sinister words scrawled across them. Almost instantaneously, a visceral wave of terror washed over her, and her hands began to tremble violently. The chilling manuscript was purportedly authored by a small, unidentified foreign faction. The opening lines delivered a harrowing ultimatum. Listen carefully. We have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, but you must comply with our demands with absolute precision. The perpetrators were extorting the family for a highly specific and perplexing sum of money. They demanded exactly $118,000 for the safe return of the 6-year-old. In the realm of kidnapping and extortion, criminals typically demand rounded figures, making this exact number highly suspicious. This uncanny financial detail remains one of the most baffling anomalies in the annals of true crime. Coincidentally, John Ramsey had recently been awarded an executive Christmas bonus from his software corporation. The exact value of that highly confidential bonus was precisely $118,000. The sinister letter also contained a draconian warning against contacting the authorities. It explicitly threatened that any communication with law enforcement would result in the immediate execution of their daughter. However, paralyzed by maternal panic and sheer desperation, Patsy completely disregarded the kidnappers' explicit protocol. She abandoned the terrifying document and sprinted frantically up the stairs toward JonBenét's second-floor bedroom. Upon throwing the door open, her most unfathomable nightmare materialized before her eyes. The meticulously decorated bed was entirely vacant. Her precious daughter had vanished without a trace into the freezing abyss of the house. Driven by pure adrenaline, Patsy rushed to her bedroom, awakened her husband, and frantically dialed 911. Through hysterical sobs, she pleaded with the emergency dispatcher for immediate intervention. The facade of their idyllic holiday morning was permanently shattered, giving way to a chaotic and enduring police investigation. Chapter 4: The Unmitigated Forensic Disaster. Shortly after Patsy's frantic, hysterical dispatch call, the Boulder Police Department descended upon the sprawling Ramsey estate. The responding officers breached the premises, operating under the assumption of a conventional kidnapping scenario. However, on that freezing, chaotic morning, the local law enforcement committed a catastrophic and unprecedented procedural blunder. In any standard criminal investigation, the absolute primary directive is to unequivocally secure the perimeter. Protocols dictate that officers must immediately cordon off the area with crime scene tape and strictly regulate access. Absolutely no unauthorized personnel are permitted to enter, exit, or interact with the environment. Shockingly, the inexperienced Boulder police utterly failed to execute this fundamental forensic protocol. They neglected to lock down the mansion, leaving the exterior doors practically wide open to the public. Consumed by sheer terror and desperate for emotional solace, John and Patsy began contacting their affluent inner circle. They frantically pleaded over the telephone, begging their closest friends to rush to their aid. Within mere hours, the opulent residence was completely overrun and congested with a multitude of individuals. Uniformed officers, frantic family friends, and even civilian victim advocates were aimlessly wandering through the corridors.
These distraught visitors roamed freely through the pristine kitchen, the grand living room, and the intricate hallways. They indiscriminately touched countertops, leaned against vital furniture, and tracked winter snow across the floors. In a devastating display of misplaced helpfulness, one family friend even utilized a cloth to physically wipe down the kitchen surfaces. This unmitigated chaos resulted in the absolute degradation of a highly sensitive crime scene. By permitting civilians to traverse the house unchecked, law enforcement inadvertently obliterated invaluable forensic evidence. Crucial fingerprints, microscopic fibers,
and trace DNA were irrevocably compromised, cross-contaminated, or entirely wiped away. Because the integrity of the scene was so profoundly violated, deciphering the empirical truth became a forensic impossibility. As the agonizing morning slowly transitioned into a suffocating afternoon, the crowded mansion fell into a tense, deafening silence. The collective group sat paralyzed in the living room, agonizingly awaiting the kidnappers' stipulated telephonic instructions. Yet, as the hours excruciatingly ticked by, the telephone remained ominously and persistently silent. At precisely 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a lead detective approached the exhausted patriarch, John Ramsey. The detective proposed a final, desperate measure, instructing John to conduct a comprehensive sweep of the sprawling property. "Scour the house from top to bottom," he advised, "and see if you can identify any subtle anomalies or disturbances." Carrying an immense, crushing weight of parental dread, John rose from his seat. He embarked on a methodical inspection of the labyrinthine mansion, peering into vacant closets and secondary bedrooms. Eventually, his frantic search led him to a sturdy wooden door that concealed the descent into the basement. He unlatched the heavy wood and slowly descended the staircase into the cavernous, subterranean belly of the house. Isolated in the frigid darkness, John Ramsey was mere moments away from an unfathomable discovery that would irreversibly alter his reality. John Ramsey slowly descended the wooden stairs into the frigid, subterranean depths of the mansion. The cavernous basement was an intricate labyrinth consisting of a train room and various obscure storage areas. He navigated through the gloom toward a heavy, latch-secured door that concealed a small, windowless enclave. Turning the mechanism, he swung the sturdy door open and activated a harsh, dim overhead light. As his vision adjusted to the shadows, a chilling anomaly on the cold concrete floor caught his immediate attention. It was a pristine white blanket, deliberately and unnaturally positioned in the corner of the cramped room. With his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his chest, John approached and cautiously pulled the fabric back. Tragically, concealed beneath the blanket, he discovered the lifeless body of his 6-year-old daughter, JonBenét. She was not in a state of peaceful slumber. It was irrevocably, devastatingly too late for medical intervention. An unidentified perpetrator had brutally and senselessly murdered the child within the confines of her own supposedly secure home. Consumed by an immediate, visceral wave of unimaginable grief, John gathered his deceased daughter into his arms. He carried her upstairs to the congested living room, uttering guttural cries of absolute, paralyzing agony. Witnessing this unspeakable horror, Patsy and the assembled acquaintances erupted into a chorus of hysterical, sheer shock. It was an earth-shattering moment that permanently obliterated the facade of their quintessential, privileged existence. However, by physically relocating the victim's body, John had unwittingly and irreparably contaminated the primary crime scene. In the aftermath of that horrific Christmas tragedy, an unprecedented, sensationalized media frenzy and police investigation ensued. Law enforcement professionals and investigative journalists nationwide grappled with the exact same haunting question. Who possessed the profound depravity required to murder a prominent child pageant star on the night of Christmas? Many seasoned investigators immediately directed their intense scrutiny toward the parents,
John and Patsy Ramsey. Their suspicions were heavily fueled by a highly disturbing and incriminating forensic discovery within the residence. Detectives definitively ascertained that the bizarre 2.5-page ransom manifesto was drafted on Patsy's personal legal pad. Furthermore, the purported kidnapper had executed the handwritten extortion note utilizing a black pen belonging to the household. Could affluent, prominent parents truly orchestrate such a heinous crime and fabricate an elaborate decoy letter? Conversely, a separate faction of detectives steadfastly maintained the theory of a sadistic, external intruder.
During an exhaustive forensic sweep, technicians documented a compromised, broken window situated in the dark basement. Perhaps a violent, calculating predator had silently navigated the snowstorm, breaching the sanctuary of the home while its occupants slept. Decades have agonizingly elapsed since that tragic, freezing winter night in Boulder, Colorado. Despite the application of cutting-edge DNA technology and the interrogation of numerous suspects, a definitive conviction remains elusive. The perpetrator responsible for this atrocity seemingly evaporated into the winter tempest, leaving behind a legacy of agonizing ambiguity. Today, the chilling demise of JonBenét Ramsey stands as one of the most enduring, highly publicized, unsolved mysteries in modern American history. The absolute, empirical truth remains buried deep within the silent, impenetrable walls of that opulent house in the snow.